maybe we should start, and then if other people come along, we can ask them too. But maybe we should start with you, Jacob. What would you like us to help you with today?
Sure. So one thing that I just put on the community, this might be just a really simple task, is I have this like multi-select, but want it to be from a drop-down. I can just share screen here.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so the idea is this is like part of a survey. So somebody is picking a group of different options from a list. And once they select the option, then it's going to appear underneath there and have the other items beneath it kind of go to the bottom to expand to fit these options. And then, of course, they can use the X to close out these options if they selected them by mistake. So it's like a multi-select. I don't know if this is more of like a Bravo issue or if something that like I should be looking at in Airtable or whatever kind of backend structure.
This is a tricky one, Javier.
Yeah, I mean, our drop-down component at the moment is not like a multi-selector component. So basically what you can do natively is just populate a list of options and choose one of them. So you can design how the drop-down will look like. Then once the user person it, they will get the native selector, depending on Android, iOS. But at the moment, we don't have the option to allow multiple choice on the selector. So that would be the main issue with this. I'm just trying to think if there could be any workaround to implement something like that. But
how many options are you looking at here, Jacob? How many things would you have on your list?
Probably like 10 to 20. So one workaround that I was thinking of is just having like checkboxes, which would make it just a long scrollable form. But then you could check whichever one is being selected, and you can select multiple that way. At least you wouldn't be using the drop down; you'd just be using like a series of checkboxes. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually done one thing we've got kind of working is like is putting a bunch of toggle switches on a slider. So you can have a long slider. In fact, you could put checkboxes on a slider too. So basically, you could, if you imagine like a horizontal slider, so you could slide through, like go through all the options, and you could like kind of press them. I mean, so you could do it as a toggle. So when you press them, it changes state. You have to do a bit of work on the back end so that the states is recorded and updating, what people have pressed on. But that is possible to do, and then it doesn't take up too much real estate, because one of the problem with the 20 lists on vertically is it can get a bit messy. So a slider, and you could potentially do. You could do like if you've got fancy, you could potentially do like 2 items per page on the slide. I don't know. I mean, you could play around with it, but sliders and combining that with like the checkbox idea of having the toggle, the sort of favorite button sort of state functionality can work. But it just requires you to do a bit more work at the back end to make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other options in that one, Javier, do you think? Is there any other ways we could do that?
No, I mean, I would say definitely checkboxes or the stateful inputs are the best solution here. I mean, the good thing about this sort of components is that you can totally design them as you want. So they don't need to be checkboxes. You can actually make like clickable buttons, for instance, with 2 states, depending on they're pressed or selected or not. So I would say that's the best option in terms of UX for this sort of forms.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jacob? Was that the only issue you had, or?
I mean, I have many more issues, but this one is the one that I can explain right now. So
okay,
for
sure.
a future session.
No problem. Okay. All right. Shall we ask Hamza? Hamza, can you hear us? Hello, Hamza?
Yeah, actually, he posted a question in the chat. He's asking about, how can you make a food delivery app for one specific restaurant? So, well, this sort of one of those complex app cases that involve probably several different functionalities. So first would be probably to narrow down the scope and know exactly what features you're looking to have in the app. So for instance, one possible feature would be using maps. Another feature would be using payments. Also, perhaps like having the option to communicate with, I don't know, if it's a delivery app, with the customers in the restaurant, or perhaps the people who are actually doing the delivery. So there is like a bunch of different options here. So I don't know if, I mean, maybe you can guide us a bit on what you are thinking, or even if you've tried something so far, and then we can perhaps guide you.
Anything? Maybe while he's thinking about that, maybe we could jump to Elena. Elena, can you hear us? Elena? We're just basically going around the people here. Oh, hi.
Hello.
Yes, hi. Hi. Can we ask what question you've got for us today and see if we can help you?
Well, actually, I had a question, but I find out that.
You say you got the answer, so you don't need help with the question. You figured it out. Okay. All right. Well, that's okay. That's good. Well, I mean, if any of these people are in the call want to ask another question, then we can do that. Otherwise, we've got a couple of things that we wanted to talk about to see if that's useful for people. And this is the opportunity to ask things. We're trying to help you as much as we can. So if you've got any questions about Bravo or about using any part of the platform, then feel free to ask, because we'll try and do what we can to help.
One question that I had was, so I want my users to be able to log in using their mobile number and an OTP. And I think, if I'm not wrong, that this is just a feature where you have to publish it first and then test it out. Is there any way that it could be tested, like with a, I don't know, dummy account or something, to see if it was working before publishing?
Yeah, I mean, what you can do is use TestFlight or debug APKs in case of Android. So these are bundled versions of the app, but ones that you don't really need to publish. So you can have those to test these sort of features that require an app bundle to test, like the phone login.
Okay, got it. So the meaning, it means that like you just have to make the app bundle, and at that point, then you can test the.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, I was for some reason under the impression that you had to publish it to the Play Store first.
Yeah, well, you don't really need to publish it like publicly. You do need to generate a bundle. But for instance, on Android, it's super simple. It's just clicking a button, and then you will get a bundle you can install on an Android device and test.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, if you've got anything else, we can keep going, to be honest. I mean, we got a bit of time, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, just checking here.
Also, feel free to, especially if you've been using Bravo for some days or some weeks, feel free to let us know, like if you found any particular aspect of the platform more difficult to learn than other, or if you have specific questions on how things work. I don't know, for instance, in the API collection side or the design import or anything. So we are also happy to help from that, to help you on that, and also to hear from your feedback.
One of them, this isn't really a Bravo question, but maybe from what you've seen in people's apps, how do you go about like finding a platform where you can store like video and audio, where it's like scalable and affordable at the same time? Because I'm thinking about something like Google Drive. Issue is that sometimes the links provided don't necessarily map to like actually getting them from Drive. That's maybe a backend issue, but this is just a question about like optimizing the data storage so that it's affordable and scalable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably the cheapest option, I mean, although it's not always super friendly is AWS, using their file storage.
Yeah, S3.
S3.
Okay.
That's probably the cheapest, and is scalable and scales for whatever. I mean, it's huge. And obviously, there's Google has its version. I mean, Google and Azure have their own versions of that. In Google Cloud Store. You can still, for some files, you could still use Airtable if you're careful, but they're changing the rules on that so that the links aren't permanent. You have to make a request before you see the link. So for a lot of use cases, it won't matter, but you need to be careful. The other thing, I mean, both Xano and Supabase also give you some file storage for free. And actually, Supabase effectively gives you, under the cover, Google AWS file store. So they're actually using AWS. So that could be an easy way of getting in for a certain amount of storage. And I think you can buy more storage from them. So it might be a simpler way of using AWS is with Supabase, potentially. So you can have a look at that.
Okay. How about backendless as an option?
So I missed that. Say that again?
It's called backendless.
Oh yeah, backendless. Yes, I mean, also they're good. It's pretty flexible. They're not very generous for free. They're pretty. Don't give you a lot away for free, but again, that'll scale. But I mean, it really depends on your sort of comfort on using these different tools. I would say probably Xano is a bit easier to use than backendless. If you want to have something where you can control the logic. But I mean, if you want getting a lot of storage for free, then I think the most generous is Supabase when I last looked.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously, if you're going to then build logic on it, then maybe that's not the right solution for you.
Yeah, I was looking at Xano, and I don't know if it scales like within the budget that I have. So backend seems relatively better there, but it gets tough with these backend tools.
Yeah, I mean, but the beauty of Bravo is you can kind of jump around and choose.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I would have a look around. There's a few other tools out there as well. I've used all of them extensively, but I would, yeah, I mean, if backendless fits your profile, I mean, I've built a number of things on backendless and it works pretty well. It's a pretty sort of full featured solution.
One question. So can you mix and match backends with Bravo Studio?
Yeah. So you could have backendless Xano and Airtable all working at the same time on different collections. The one thing you need to be a bit aware of is if you need to protect your data with login, you're going to need to make sure there's some way of authenticating across all three things. So that could get more complicated. But if you're just trying to get content from different places, then absolutely you can, whatever you can API to, then you can connect to it. The one thing I would just caveat on that is, per collection, some authentication mechanisms work per collection, but you can, within an app, you can actually connect to different collections. So, I mean, in theory, there's ways of working across different authentication mechanisms too. So yeah, I mean, basically, short answer is yes, you can connect to different things.
So, for example, if I had like a Firebase for the username and login and everything, I could use that and connect that maybe to these different backend platforms. Or I know there's authentication within some of these backends as well. So
so the challenge you have to, and I don't think we've got an example of this, but I mean that's a really nice combination because it gives you the sort of flexibility of the Firebase login, plus also you've got the ability of maybe doing logic a bit more easily than Firebase provides. So I mean we've got a number of people who do that, have Firebase for login and then maybe do their logic and data storage in Xano, for example. And what you just have to do there is you have to make sure that when you create the user in Firebase, you can kind of authenticate it across to Xano. There's a couple of ways of doing that, but I think we probably should do a tutorial on that because I think there's a lot of people would benefit from it. So that's
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Jacob, you're the only person here still, so if you've got anything else, please feel free.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not expect this personal tutoring. Okay. Let's see. So this is good. One maybe UI question. So I have it's kind of like a game app where the user can navigate across different squares. And I wanted to kind of be like a graphical thing where if you click like an up button, it goes to the block above it. If you click the right button, it goes to the block to the right of that, something like that. Is that something that would be possible, or should I think of maybe like a simpler kind of like exploration style screen?
That's an interesting question. So you want this to happen on the same screen. So as you press up, it moves up on the same screen, right? That's what you want to do.
Yeah, so maybe I can just give a quick screenshot of this. Yeah. Yeah, so something like this, where you have like a grid of blocks, and it can be designed for any kind of city like schema. I figured that may be easier than doing like a more realistic kind of thing.
Okay.
And so each of the blocks has a different state here, and they might also have different kinds of icons depending on what things the user can do on those blocks. And so they can click on it, and then they can access whatever is within that block. And maybe even have like a zoom capability here, because maybe having this kind of thing is not, as easily clickable. An alternative here is to just have it kind of like this, or to even have these larger as like cards like this.
I mean, one suggestion I would have when I looked at this is maybe some sort of combination. So, for example, the first screen you showed us, maybe that could be in zones, and then you click on a zone and then it goes to the screen above where it's kind of zoomed in, and then once it zooms in, you click on each thing and it does different stuff. That would be one option. We don't have the ability in Bravo to kind of update the screen. It normally refreshes the whole screen when it's normally the way it works. So to do that first screen with all the little squares, that would get complicated really fast, I think, to try and implement that. The other thing I would say is you could implement some of this, particularly that sort of, if you wanted to have that granularity, possibly do it in a web view, and then just track the position, which is then what feeds through when you ask the data from Bravo. But that's just two ideas. Javier, what do you think? Anything springs to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the web view idea is a good one, actually, if you could do that. Then the other option you could try is using, like, have the array of blocks sort of static, and control them with conditional visibility. So you can trigger all those different states. However, as Toby mentioned, the problem with that is that you will need to refresh the whole screen every time the user presses on a button, which is probably not ideal in terms of UX, but technically it could work, because that way you could send new states from the backend, and you could update the UI depending on those states. Okay. But you will need to do a whole refresh.
Okay. What about if we treat these boxes like checkboxes, like a stateful component?
Yeah, the problem with that is that you would only have two states. So you would only have active and default state.
Okay, so you can't have like 5 different states.
No, for that you need conditional visibility. So you need to create the 5 different elements on top of each other, and then control them with the conditional visibility and display just one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, this actually could work if we did like a stateful component here. So this is like the inactive one, ones that you can't select because you're not close to them, and you can only navigate like this. So there would be like one group of selectable options here, and you can click one and get to that.
Yeah, I mean, it just the difficulty with that is it becomes it's very hard. You'd have to set a lot of that setup would be in Figma, so it would get very complicated. Sure. I mean, it should work. It's just managing it would be hard. Would be my concern.
What if there's like can you make a polygon that is clickable? Like if I did this and I just put a bunch of polygons together.
Yeah, you can customize how the stateful component looks like. So you can be creative on that. That's not going to be a limitation, definitely.
Okay. So for example, if like this is a region, let's say, and then this becomes something that's clickable to the user and they can access the next screen by clicking on this region.
Yeah, exactly. That
works well. Yeah.
Good. That's interesting use case, actually.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. It's a nice way of navigating around a city, actually. It's pretty cool. I'd like to see that when you get it done.
Sure, yeah. This is like a kind of city urban navigation kind of app. So, yeah, we'll look forward to getting something finally moving in the next week or so.
Nice. That's very cool. So I guess maybe, Javier, do you want to talk about the other things we've got just to finish off, show people. I think you're gonna show them. You're gonna show chat or something else.
Yeah. So I wanted just to show briefly what the possibilities of the chat feature are, since we released this feature yesterday. So yeah, I will just share my screen for a moment. Okay. Okay, there we go. So, well, this is our new feature. It's integration with CometChat, which is a chat provider for basically for chats, right? So this will unlock a few new use cases for many apps, and mostly how it works is you need to create an account on CometChat. They do have their own pricing plans. They offer a free tier with up to 25 users, which hopefully is good enough at least for the MVP stage of your app. And
I think it's 25 monthly users. So actually, you could have more users, but it's only, I think they look at active usage. I think so. It can be a bit better than
just 25 makes sense. Total. Okay, yeah. Well, that's even better then. Okay, so well, basically that's what you need to do, create an account in CometChat, and then you need to create a Firebase project, because that's going to be needed to create the whole connection, and also you need to authenticate in order to use this feature, because Bravo handles the user IDs in a way that you need to create a Firebase project and authenticate with Firebase to use the feature. So once you have the account, basically the two use cases we provide for now are the following ones. One of them would be having a sort of admin and client support chat in a way that an admin can have an application to handle several chats, and then each customer can have one application to communicate with this admin, or let's say main user, right? So how this would look like would be an admin application with all the chats, and then all the individual customers individually talking to the admin. So one use case for this could be, for instance, a shop where the shop owner has the admin application, and then all the shop customers that could message the shop owner to ask for whatever, like any kind of support or any requests or anything. So this would be the first use case, and the second one would be having group chat. So how this would work is you could have, for instance, an application for an event where each attendee for the event would need to have an account, and then inside this application you could have a group chat. So basically you would need to create first a group in the CometChat platform, and then you need to do a sort of like setup that is explained here in the documentation, and then you would have a group chat inside your application. So that would enable the users who have logged in to chat with each other in a group sort of chat. So these are like two main use cases we thought of. Of course, like you could apply group chat to many more app cases than this event app, but this could be an option. And now I will just briefly show you how the actual UI of the chat looks like. So just 1 second so I can share my phone. Okay. There we go. So, well, this would be the UI of the, in this case, the group chat. And basically, as you can see, there are several users created here. There are some people who share their location. And then you could even like have a look at all the users right here. So it's kind of like an interface similar to well-known messaging applications. So yeah, and basically this would be a whole, I actually share the Figma file so you can see how to set it up. So this would be basically the setup you would need. As you can see, it's just a blank screen, and then you need to set the according tag. In this case, would be for the group chat. You need to indicate here the ID of the group you created in the platform, and then this would become one of like an interface like the one you just saw in the phone. So that's it. Hopefully, this would be a feature that many users can benefit from. And happy to hear also from your feedback and to hear from all the use cases you can build with this.
So is essentially like an iframe but taking up the whole screen because it's using CometChat's
well, it actually has like a, let's say, more robust integration because you need to like connect all the Firebase assets, and then also like if you create a group, for instance, you need to indicate that in the tags and everything. So it's a bit more complex than just an iframe, but yeah, I mean, basically this would be the interface you would see.
It's basically a native implementation, and it's using the login that comes from Firebase, so that you're logged in and it can then reference the different groups that person's actually connected to. So we kind of done a lot of the heavy lifting, but make it so easy so you can just drop in the tag on the screen to make chat appear, and then you can manage the groups and stuff through the CometChat itself. The thing that's about CometChat is really powerful, and one of the reasons why we thought it was a good option is because it actually it's got a lot really extensible. There's loads of extensions. So the initial piece is obviously chat, but within CometChat itself, you can actually upgrade the capabilities to do things like real-time translation, content moderation, all sorts of stuff. So you can basically upgrade your CometChat to do more things if you want to. Once it's actually in place.
So I have a use case actually for 2 app ideas. But they're both going to involve the same kind of functionality. So for this use case, it would be kind of like you have a chat at the bottom of the screen, and there's like a main kind of activity or view that's going on at the top of the screen. So they're kind of commenting as whatever activity they're required to do at that point. So instead of having it take up the whole screen, maybe have it take up 1/4 of the screen at the bottom, and you just have like it's kind of like I guess you could say Twitch, for example, where I got it.
So you go Twitch. That's an interesting question. Actually, I don't know. Is the tag a page tag or a container tag?
Yeah, at the moment it's a page tag. So you will need to create a full screen chat. However, we will for sure be releasing improvements, and one of them might be having the option to display it like partially, maybe half of the screen or just a custom size. So that's actually interesting to hear.
Yeah, let's we'll add that to the improvements list, and that's a good idea.
Or even simplify it. So a lot of apps here in India, they don't even have like a text option, but they still incorporate like a social aspect by involving like emojis. So you just have like maybe 20 different emoji buttons that you can press, and that's how you communicate with whoever you're, competing against.
That is interesting. Okay, that's a good thought. All right, well we'll take that. We'll add that to the list and have a think about it. But yeah, okay, very good. One question, Javier. Have we shown people the in-app purchase? I don't know if that's. I've got a video I did about how it works. Is it worth doing? Do you think, or is it? I can't remember if we covered it off before. I only talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if you've actually shown it.
I think we've covered it like mostly with our sample app, but for sure, maybe if you have another example.
No. It's basically sample app again. So okay.
Okay.
No, it's fine. If we covered it off, we got an example, then that's absolutely fine. Okay. I think we're good. Jacob, have you got any other quick questions before we go?
No, I think that's good. Plenty of stuff to work on.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for asking your questions, and thanks everybody for coming on. And Javier, obviously, good, always good answers. And then let's talk to you all next time. Thanks everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.